What is going on, guys? It is Daniel Wright, and you are here listening to another episode of Paving the Way. Guys, as always, I appreciate you tuning in this week for another show, another topic, another little rant, and maybe a few pieces of advice you can take back to your work, your life, your business, whatever it might be, and be better because of it. Guys, this week, what I am wanting to talk about, the title of the show is Failing to Prepare is Preparing to Fail, right? If you haven't been living under a rock your entire life, you've probably heard some rendition of that saying. Failing to plan is planning to fail. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail, so on and so forth. But I wanted to talk about this topic because I've been spending a little bit more time around the office, just kind of observing, listening to conversations people are having, watching what people are doing, how different parts of the process is going in our business. Some people call it the term using management by walking around. It sounds very silly if you've never done it, but the amount of things that you can learn about your business, your team, your systems, your processes by just walking around, listening to conversations, asking maybe a few questions about why something's happening, what's going on there, what purpose does this have, so on and so forth, can be very beneficial. And in doing that over the last week or so, because I, tend to have a little bit of ADD when I'm in the office because I just like to know what all's going on, hear about what's going on. I enjoy it. Right. I enjoy, it's rewarding to me to hear all these things that are happening in this thing that we call our business. But one of the things that's been brought to mind, because our pace of operations has been so fast this year, we've been moving through projects, moving through proposals, moving through different tasks, maintenance, repairs, updating systems and processes, whatever it may be. One thing I've realized is our team is doing an absolutely outstanding job at the preparation that goes into every part of a project. And so today, what I want to kind of do is just kind of run through the different steps, the administrative side of a project, the sales side, the operations side, and then back to the administrative side for invoicing and project closeout. I want to kind of run through some of the steps that we do to prepare for every project from the initial inquiry all the way to when the project is closed out. So I'm going to go through that. And hopefully that provides a little bit of value to you. So let's get started. All right, guys, like I said, what we are talking about today is making sure that we are preparing as much as possible, right? Because like I said originally, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So in our business, in our organization, what we do at Proline is we make sure that we try to find every little nook and cranny from a project from this time we get a phone call, so cradle, to the time we close the project out, grave. So from cradle to grave, we want to find every little nook and cranny we can to be as adequately prepared to handle it as possible. In our business, we have essentially 3 different departments that handle a project regularly. That's our administrative department, our sales department, and our operations department. We can't forget the media department because they're the ones who make us all look good and get the content out there and show you guys what we're doing day in and day out on our business channels and our business pages. I'll get to that in a little bit. But nonetheless, we make sure that we have the administrative department, the sales department, and the operations department as set up for success as possible for each and every opportunity we get the chance to look at. So what does that look like, right? So in order for us to prepare to best take a client's inquiry or a phone call, we make sure that we already have a preset template that we call an RFP of, a dozen and a half fields, entries that have to be put in, right? We're talking about the client's company name, the contact's name, phone number, email, billing address, property address, when is the property available to be worked on? Is it weekends only, nighttime? We can make it work Monday through Friday. What scope that they're doing, how they hear about us so we can make sure we're tracking our marketing efforts, so on and so forth. So we have a preset RFP process that has to be filled out for every inquiry that we receive by a client. And Megan, who runs our office, she knows that in order for us to go forward to the next step, this has to be filled out, right? So the preparing in this is knowing that on our system, we use Basecamp as our essentially kind of as our makeshift CRM. We've built out templates. And step one on that template is the RFP has been filled out. So we have prepared our administrative team to know that when they create a new template or a new project card, that step number one is that we have an RFP filled out and put into the system. Okay, so then from there, we've pre-filled out this template for our administrative team that says, okay, is this project going to require a site visit, a site assessment? And if so, when is it scheduled for? So that's the next task that has to be done. If not, then the next step is this project has been assigned to an estimator. So we've pre-set up, we've prepared our administrative team to know every time they start a project, they know exactly the steps that they're going to need to take in order to set the salesperson up for success, who's the next person in that lineage of the project. And so from there, the salesperson, when they receive that project, and the way our pipeline works is each estimator has a column that says, like I'm a salesperson, an estimator. It says Daniel's site visits or Daniel's estimates. Okay. And so if I get assigned to a project that requires a site visit where I'm either going to meet somebody or I just go look at it whenever the time gets put on my time slot, my calendar, then I know it's in my site visits column. And so admin, Megan, is preparing me by knowing, is this project going to go get a site visit first, or is this just an estimate that I can work on putting together based off of blueprints, client photos, an aerial view, map view, something like that. And so we know that going into it as the salesperson, that the estimates is either going to go to a site visit or it's going to be just an estimate that we need to fill out. Then on that template that I mentioned for every project card, we know that we have certain checklists in the sales department that we have to make sure are accomplished, right? And so that's things such as going to the site visit, right? You would think that's pretty simple, but some people, when they get very busy schedules, if they don't check their calendars frequently enough, whatever it may be, it's a great reminder that, hey, you have a site visit for this project, okay? The next one is, did you upload the map, the aerial map, the diagram that we make for properties, so that way we can show the client and show our crew where we're working at, what we're scoping out on this project. So as a checkoff to make sure that you've set up, that you've loaded in the property, the map. The next one is making sure we've loaded in all of the pricing information on this project card, right? Our project cards are basically a binder for a project. So we put all the information in this one project card on our program, and it moves through the whole pipeline together. And so there's the checkoffs for making sure we put our pricing in there. There's a checkoff for then if we're using a partner contractor, for any big concrete work, paving work, things like that. We have a check item that says you've contacted the subcontractor for their pricing. You've sent the scope over to them. And then after that, there's a next step that's set up that says you've received and put their pricing on this project card. So that way you have all that set up. If you don't need any of that, the next step is that you have loaded all the pricing into the card and you have generated and submitted the estimate. And then after that, there's a step that you've assigned yourself a task within 24 to 48 hours to make sure the client received the estimate, right? So I just, in 60 to 70 seconds, just ran you through basically our sales process, how that goes. And the reason I'm telling you that is because, again, it's just to reiterate that we have set up every project to prepare for success. We have identified the key points of every project that need to be done, need to have timelines associated with them, that we have, deadlines that, hey, if this is an in-house estimate and it's, it doesn't require a site visit, we need this thing turned around within 48 hours. So we know these things have to be assigned. They're put on our calendars, our tasks, so on and so forth, whatever you want to refer to them as. But nonetheless, we have the checklist to make sure that it's all handled. Okay. The next step, when we get the approval to make sure that we're setting the operations team and the client up for success, when we get that approval, an admin team typically handles that approval. So they take it, they make sure that we have all of the proper documentation for the client, right? Do we need special certificates of insurance? Do we need to send them our W-9s? Do we need to get signed up in a vendor portal, whatever it might be? So they're preparing to close this project out from the minute we get it accepted. So we're making sure we've got all the documents lined up. Then we also make sure that we get a questionnaire. It's about 7 or 8 questions to that client. Who's our main on-site point of contact? Confirming what, if there's any gate codes that we have to get in, whatever it might be. So we're now setting up the operations team for success. So when those guys go out to do the project, they already have a sheet filled out of who's the person that you're contacting, who's signing off on it. Is there any gate codes, like I said, whatever it might be. And then from there, we make sure that we have all the projects set up properly, right? So like I said, in Basecamp, we use it for our project management system as well. So that's where we can set up our pre-project checklist for admin, pre-project for sales to sign off on the scope of work. We put a debrief in it for the salesperson to basically tell the operations team, like, who was quoted for this job, how many people, is it nighttime work, where is it out on the property? So when you get there, is it the back corner by the dumpster pad, or is it the whole place, or just the right, whatever it might be. So you put all the information like that on there, and then admin is taking all of the work order that gets accepted, putting it into a check by check, list by list scope of work for the operations team to be able to go execute on, tell them what colors of paint they need, how many gallons of material, and, anything like that, right? And so admin is then getting this whole project packaged up to hand over to the operations team. Now, the operations team, they have the checklist that they have to do, right? They have to send out the scheduling message to the client. They have to review the scope of work and make sure that they've signed off and acknowledged all the information that's been put into it. They make sure that they send out a 24-hour confirmation notice to the client. Then once they get there, they're sending updates as kind of each phase of the project is completed with photos. So all these things are built in templates that are pre-project checklists, and then throughout the duration of the project checklist to keep everybody set up for success, right? Because anybody who's worked in any sort of a business that is rocking and rolling, just getting things moving at a high velocity, high rate of speed, knows that it's very easy that if you keep it all right here in your head, you're going to forget it. You're going to move on to the thing that you think is most important in that very moment. But that may not be the thing that's most important to the process, to the company, to the administrative person, to the client, or whoever it might be that's involved. And so since we have this process ironed out for the salesperson, then the operations person, it helps keep everybody prepared and set up for success. Now, as we go through that, the project gets completed. The ops guys are checking off the to-dos, sending out the messages they need done. And then once it's done and it moves through that pipeline, it gets back to administrative for final invoicing and closing out the project, right? In that, there's check items to make sure that we've sent the W-9. We've confirmed they have all of the information they need. We've submitted the invoice in a vendor portal if that's what it requires, or we've sent it appropriately, so on and so forth. And then last but not least, we have the media team, who their responsibility is to determine whether or not this project is something we're going to put on our social media, or if it's not. And if it's not, then we say, well, why did we not put this on our social media? So I just spent the last 8 or 9 minutes walking you through the entire process that our company follows from cradle to grave. And the reason I'm doing that is because so many people tend to overlook the importance of preparing for the next step in the process, right? A lot of people I know are the self-employed entrepreneurs, the self-employed business owners. And so their processes that they follow are oftentimes kept right in their head, right? They're the ones that are giving the orders, giving the instruction, giving the direction on what needs to be done, when to do it, where to do it, how to do it, why to do it, and with whom to do it. However, that's not very scalable now, is it? Because unless you're building a business that you just want to provide an income for you and your family and maybe a couple people to help you on the side, you need something that can scale, something that another person who is able to read and comprehend and understand what you're doing as a business and then step into that role and then execute it on their own. And so the fact that we have set up an entire process from cradle to grave, from the time of someone makes a phone call, we gather all their information, all the way through that project to the time that we send the invoice and close it out, we make sure that we are preparing the next person who takes over this project for the ultimate level of success. Some people come back and say, Daniel, your system's way too complicated. It's just pavement maintenance. It's just parking lots. It doesn't need to be this in depth. That's fine. But the 99-cent cheeseburger that you go buy from McDonald's has a very detailed process on what is supposed to be followed, right? Supposed to should be in quotes or italics, because we all know that sometimes your cheeseburger gets messed up at McDonald's. But nonetheless, there is a very clear system that is followed, and that is to set up and prepare those individuals who are working at that location to achieve the desired results for the client and for the business owner. And so the more that you're documenting your processes and you're setting up your systems that is allowing your team to prepare before execution, then the more likely you are to achieve the results you're looking to achieve. Okay. Now, just because I went through the step-by-step process, the Cliff Notes version of it, in just a few minutes, doesn't mean there's not other things that get put into place, right? Recently, over the last several weeks, the operations team has been doing morning briefings and afternoon briefings. The morning briefings is kind of a niche down meeting for the crew that is going out together that day. Do they have the supplies needed for today's job? Have they reviewed what's on tomorrow's job to see if they need to get any supplies while they're out and about? Have they checked their notifications on Basecamp and responded to any messages accordingly? Have they reported any damaged equipment that needs to be reported to maintenance to make sure it's getting fixed and taken care of? So these guys are taking one step further to prepare for what's coming up, so that way they are best equipped to handle whatever the day throws at them. Because the Lord knows that no day ever goes as planned, right? There's some saying along the lines of every plan is great until it meets first contact, or Mike Tyson said, yeah, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? Any day in the day of a small business, or any business for that matter, is like getting punched in the mouth. You wake up ready to go. You're going to take on the day. It's going to be fantastic. Next thing you know, it rains out of nowhere. A client cancels a job because the project wasn't ready for it. Somebody calls in sick. Somebody, whatever. You name the problem, and it finds its way to business, okay? But the more that you're preparing your crews, preparing your teams through documented systems and processes, the higher likelihood you are to achieve those results, right? And the more that you can achieve those results, the more that you can get those consistent outcomes for your clients, for your team, for your vendors, for your contractors, the more the people are going to want to stick around, because people are creatures of habit. They like consistency. They like predictability. And let's face it, most people like winning. And so if you can prepare to win and prepare to succeed, your winning rates are going to go up. Your morale is going to go up. Your credibility is going to go up. And your overall business satisfaction is going to go up. And so that's why I wanted to, share a little bit of the importance that I believe in making sure that you're preparing as best as possible. Because if you fail to set your team up for success, you might as well just say, we don't want success. We're okay with failure. We're okay with risking it and gambling on whether or not we're going to achieve success on this project. And this isn't to say that it's foolproof. This isn't to say that, preparing for the projects or the scopes or the processes or anything like that makes it bulletproof. But nonetheless, you're really increasing your odds of getting the results. So, like I said, I hope that this helped a little bit on making sure to, remind you of the importance of how much preparing for success and setting your team, yourself, your clients, your vendors, whatever it may be, up for success. Because the more you can set up predictable results, the more that you're going to enjoy this journey that we call building a business. So guys, as I've been saying the last couple of weeks, if you want to see more about what I'm talking about, right? Seeing these processes in action, seeing what we do, who we are, and what we stand for, right? Because a lot of yahoos can get behind a camera, behind a microphone, and talk about all this stuff because they read it in a book, or they heard it on a podcast, or they watched a YouTube video about it. But if you want to see what we are actually doing at Proline, make sure that you're checking out all of our company pages as well, because that's where Randy, with our media department, he's putting everything out there, guys. We're building out platforms. We're building out videos that are not just providing entertainment and oddly satisfying videos of just striping lines or whatever it may be. It's documenting the journey for this business. It's documenting the lives of the individuals that we have here. Because let's face it, people don't do business with logos and brands. They do business with people. And so I want to make sure that we're putting out the content and the information to show you guys what it is we do day in and day out. So whether it's our YouTube page that has new videos put out every Friday that highlight projects or people or whatever it might be, some training, things like that, or if it's just our regular, Instagram and Facebook, I've been asked to give this a little plug, and so that is what I'm doing. I'm not getting paid to do this. I'm doing it out of the kindness of my heart. So you're welcome, Randy. But nonetheless, guys, as always, I appreciate you tuning in. I hope that you are going to start doing better about preparing and not failing to prepare, because that would be preparing to fail. And nobody wants to be a failure. So with that, I hope you keep kicking ass this week. I look forward to seeing you next week. Who knows what I'm going to talk about, but I'm sure it'll be entertaining.